Hmm. All right. Hello. My name is Brianna Wonderland, and I am here in a very special interview about how to create from the womb at the center of the universe. Now, we are all creating all the time, every moment of every day, even while sleeping. And the key to create in alignment with the consciousness of the universe, the key is to create in alignment with the consciousness of the universe, but how do we do that? And I'm here with wisdom keeper Ilarion Merculieff to shed some light on this topic. Ilarion is an Unangan elder from Alaska. He is the founder of the Global Center for Indigenous Leadership and Lifeways. Ilarion is also the visionary project founder and ongoing key speaker for Wisdom Weavers, a really cool international organization of Indigenous elders bringing heart-centered wisdom to help humanity live consciously connected to life. So you should definitely check them out at, I think it's www.wisdomweavers.org.
.world.
.world. Wisdomweavers.world. And they have a great new video on there as well, so check them out. Ilarion was raised in a traditional Unangan way. I think he's one of the last generations in his culture to be raised fully immersed in that way that's very different from our Western. Many of the people who's watching this and my Western upbringing, and it has a lot of heart and just puts us so much deeper contact with the earth and how we create with the earth. And Ilarion was given the Unangan name Kuyaks at age 4, and the name is given to one person in each lifetime amongst his people. Kuyak means an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. Today, he is living the legacy of his name, definitely. And we're really excited that he got given that job so that he interfaces with all of us and says yes to all these amazing interviews that we get to partake in his wisdom and the wisdom of his culture. So thank you so much for being here.
Okay, great to be here.
And so there's a lot of destruction going on in the world today, and we obviously need to create a new world, or a world that is more in alignment with, let's say, more nature-based, all-encompassing practices and interconnection. And the indigenous people have a lot of tools and keys to that to help us draw and create that deeper relationship that we're all longing for. Can you tell us a little bit how you learned to create this, and how the teachings of your early life provided and led you to create more in that way with the world?
Okay, one, kamagala kamna, kamagala kasuda, Unangan way, Unangan sakta kuya, Amakancha sakta Ilarion Merculieff, Tinkawalangan Unangan way. I said, good afternoon, my other self. We greet each other like this every day amongst my people who are Unangan. And we have been living out in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years, and we're still there. And I said my traditional name is Kuyak, and you explained what that meant. And now I'm living the legacy of that name. And I said I come from the people of the sea line. It's the stellar sea line, not the California sea line. It's much bigger because we have a reciprocal relationship with stellar sea line. And so, yeah, I think before I talk about how we get to where we're going, I should explain a little bit about my background and the history of my people, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
And also I'd like to say hello to your viewers and to thank you, Brianna, for inviting me to this Zoom conference. Okay, well, we can trace our history back to Egypt, from Egypt to Outer Mongolia, to Siberia, to Kamchatka, and across by skinboat. We didn't cross the Bering land bridges, anthropologists say. We crossed by boat.
Mm.
And we developed a highly evolved spiritual culture, if you will. We have the word for it, Unangan, means the real human being or the human being. And in our case, it's the human being by the sea.
Mm.
Now we have 12 different major ethnic groups in Alaska. In the far north, you've got the Nupiat, which means the real people.
Mm.
And you've got Yupik, which means the people or the real people. Dene means the people. They're in central Alaska. So every group has a name that means the real human being. And it's a code from our ancestors about how we live. And we live present in the moment and in the heart.
Mm.
And that's the definition of a real human being. And
I love that definition. Hello, real human being.
yeah, it's so the way that our people have lived in the Bering Sea is a reflection of, it gives you an example of what a real human being is. I'm sorry, my daughter is making noise. Okay, anyway, we, for example, we have no food storage technologies amongst the Unangan except for air drying or wind.
Mm.
But other than that, we're the only native group in Alaska that doesn't have food storage technologies.
Mm.
And we don't plan where to get our food the next day. We don't, what do we say? What do I say? We don't live expecting anything to happen in any particular day. We just go with the flow.
Mm.
And we were the only people in Alaska that didn't have footwear, even in the wintertime.
Mm.
Can you imagine not having any footwear in the winter in Alaska?
I imagine your feet are super tough.
Well, yeah, it's like the llamas who would sit on the snow and melt it. That was our people.
Mm.
And when I asked my elder what was the most important thing about my culture, and he said, because he was Unangan, he said, well, look at the birds. You see the birds, they don't worry about where they get their food the next day. Are we any different?
Mm.
And of course, the answer is no, we're not any different. What my people represented was a trust in your life, trust in the process of living, trust in Mother Earth, trust in the universe, trust in the spirit, the great spirit that lives in all things. Complete trust that is embodied, not thought of, not made up by the mind, but embodied trust.
Mm.
It's a level of trust that the world has forgotten. But we'll talk about that later. Then, you know, like you said, I lived a very traditional upbringing, or I had a very traditional upbringing. I was fortunate and blessed enough to have that. So at age 4, to get to know my grandfather, and for my grandfather to get to know me, I had to be with him 24/7 for 2 years at age 4.
Mm.
So I went to work with him. I went to visit his friends with him, drinking tea. I went hunting with him. I even early in the morning we'd take our shirts off and wash ourselves with the Bering Sea,
Mm.
facing the east. And that night we might go to the Russian Orthodox Church because he didn't see any difference in where one gained one's spirituality.
Mm.
It's more what happens to the person than the environment around him.
Mm.
And this is and one of the important things he taught me. I was 4 years old at the time. After we did our morning prayer, we went out for a walk, and it was a beautiful day. In the Pribilof Island, the island I grew up in is called St. Paul Island in the middle of the Bering Sea.
Mm.
And it's 12 miles long and 5 miles wide.
Mm.
And it had 2.5 million fur seals, northern fur seals, 2.5 million, or what is it, 1.2 million northern fur seals, and 2.5 million seabirds, and 1,000 reindeer and 500 Unangan people.
Wow.
That was a magical place to be raised as a child.
And you were the minority.
Yes, we were definitely the minority, but we lived very much in harmony with all that is. And so at age, and that beautiful day, it was, most of the time, it's like we get 20 days of sunshine a year. Can you believe it? Most of the time it's either overcast or cloudy or foggy. And so this was a clear day. And we're called birthplace of the winds. We're always windy, but this day was calm as can be.
Wow.
And you could hear the seals barking and the birds singing their song. It was just the sea was flat, calm. It was just beautiful. And so I had to remark about it. I was so taken by it that, I said, "It's sure beautiful." And he goes, "Tutuda." That's all he said, "Tutuda." And what tutuda means is listen.
Mm.
And it's a special kind of listening. What he encapsulated was probably why our people survived and thrived in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years. And that is that the most important human experiences should just be experienced. Because as soon as we put it into words, we diminish the meaning. And so words are superfluous or can be considered even dangerous. And so we just experience what we see and what we feel. And that's something that my people have lived with until the Russians arrived and we had our Holocaust, where 80% of our people were wiped out in 50 years.
Wow.
And so it's a way of looking at the world that I later incorporated into my own life.
Mm.
Then at age 5, I had an acha, a traditional mentor, much more than a mentor, because before I had an acha, you would meet adults. And I was 5 years old, and I met this man who I knew was my acha.
Mm.
Without anything, just know that he is my acha, and he knew that I was his acha.
Mm.
And we called each other acha immediately. And this acha relationship requires this kind of spiritual connectedness,
Mm.
that you would know that's my acha.
Mm.
And so he taught me everything I know about being a man, about relationships, about reverence for all life, about sharing and caring and hunting and ethics and values. And he taught me all of that from age 5 to age 13. And yet he may have said no more than 200 words to me, because words are considered superfluous, may even be considered dangerous.
Mm.
And so he taught me a lot of things. And his job was to create the space for me to learn, not tell me what I'm to learn or how I'm to learn or define anything. So I grew up not asking a single question. And that's very unusual today.
Yeah.
Amongst most kids. You got to ask questions, ask. And my job was to watch, listen, and learn.
Mm.
And that's what I did. I watched, I listened, I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I was treated like, I was treated in a way as a child by the rest of the adults in the village in a way that most children don't know today.
Yeah.
Where every adult would affirm me. Every day that I would encounter an adult, they would say something to affirm me. Ang lakaya kham na kochen, good boy. That every day. Can you imagine that? Every day from age 5 to age 13, they would say something positive about me. And I would be treated like the long lost son when I could visit any house, day or night, and be treated like the long lost son. Anakaya Kamuda Umichidwa Kakad, come in, sit down, eat. That's the way that I would be greeted every day. And I was never scolded.
Yeah.
Most children, they don't know what that's like, not to ever be scolded. And I like to give the example of my that one time when I stole $20 from my grandfather. I think I was 9 years old then, and $20 was a lot of money to our people in those days. It takes a whole year to make $20.
Yeah.
And so I stole it because I wanted to buy this plastic airplane in the store. That was owned by the government, the U.S. government. And so I went down there, gave the money, asked for the plane, and I was given the plane. And then unbeknownst to me, my aunt was standing right behind me. I turned around and whoop, there she is. And she didn't say anything while I was in the building. She waited until I got out of the building. And then she said, in a very unaccusatory voice, Larry, where'd you get the money for that? And I knew I was caught. So I said, well, I stole it, from my papa. And she said, what do you think you should do about that? Mm-hmm. She asked me what I should do about what I did. Mm. And of course, I knew I was caught, so I said, well, I have to take the plane back, get the money, tell my papa I stole it. And she goes, Mahun, okay. Hmm. So I went back in and turned the plane in, got $20, and she took $20 out of her own pocket and bought me the plane. That was amazing. Then I go home and tell my papa, I stole $20 from you, Papa. He says, good boy. Yeah. And see, the genius of that is that you recognize the proper behavior and don't recognize the behavior that wasn't so good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is because real human beings, they recognize that children are spirit beings in human form. Mm. And that as children, they lack experience in this world for being human. Mm. And that we have to try to guide them the best that we can. Mm. And this is something that my people have understood for thousands of years. or my mother, she would tell me, you know, we cry when the baby is born and we celebrate when they die.
Mm.
They cry because we're to go from this non-form form into form is very heavy and very challenging.
Yeah.
And that we're going to have heavy, challenging things as human beings. But then when we die, we're back to our formless self again.
Yeah. Freedom.
Yeah. So anyway, this is why adults are very careful about the way they treat their children. Because a fresh new spirit being in human form is easily traumatized.
Yeah.
We're traumatized, you know, because in the unseen world, it's perfect harmony, and in this world we have all kinds of disharmony, and we have to be careful not to transfer that to our children. And so we should be aware of that. And the adult's responsibility is to simply create the space for a child to learn. And the child's responsibility is to watch, listen, and learn. And that's all. And so this society has forgotten that. And then, you know, this has to do with the womb at the center of the universe. One day I loved watching seabirds, and the nearest seabird cliff was like 6 miles out, or 3 miles out of the village. And I'm 6 years old, and I want to go out and watch them. And my parents, being the way they were as Unangan, they said, "Go ahead. I'm by myself."
Yeah.
And to get there, I have to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning in the village, and it's overcast, and generally there's no light of any kind, and there's no street lights at all.
Yeah.
So I walk 3 miles out of the village. You have to depend upon the trust you have in your entire body to negotiate your way out to where you're going.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And then then I would crawl over these large basalt boulders. I'm by myself now. Now, this kind of thing might be considered child abuse today. I don't know. But anyway, that's the way our people were. And so I would crawl underneath the cliff and wait for the birds to wake up just at break of dawn. And because what they would do invariably every single day would wake up, and they would start flying in front of the cliff in a circle, adding more and more to their numbers before they go out foraging, because that's why they do this. They go out in a circle and wait for, and so there's a number of circles, and underneath this cliff might be 10,000 seabirds. Now, mind you, 2.5 million seabirds on an island is 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. And they only congregate on the edge of the island. And so I would love the way that the birds woke up and flew around, because they would fly in every direction, you know, diagonally up, diagonally down, right, left, different speeds, different heights. And there'd be like 10,000 seabirds of many different kinds of species. Thick-billed murres, common murres, least auklets, crested auklets, pelagic cormorants, you know, red-faced cormorants, just tufted puffins, horned puffins, all kinds of species. And they would fly the way they'd fly, each different. And there'd be this apparent chaos in front of the cliff. But I noticed one thing very significant about these seabirds, that is that they, in this apparent chaos, they never even clip a wing. You know, wow, this is magical.
Yeah.
And so I wondered, what's the difference between human beings and these seabirds. And in my child mind, I was 6 years old. I said, well, birds don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very smart answer.
Yeah. And I didn't have the words for it at the time, but they're a field of awareness, in this intelligent field of awareness. So they never hit each other. And so I said, well, in my 6-year-old mind, I want to be a bird. And so I worked at trying to be a bird. And I succeeded partially in that, I didn't grow feathers or anything like that, but I was able to get out of my mind. After 2 months of working at it, I could actually go through the experience without a single word or single thought coming through my head. And that's a great gift that I got from the seabirds. And it's a great gift because, I took this new feeling I had out hunting with me. The hunters would take me out, my archer would take me out hunting with him. There'd be 5 or 6 hunters out there, and we'd be hunting stellar sea lion from shore to water because it's too cold for these animals to be exposed to the air. It's colder in the air than it is in the water. So they stay in the water. So we have to hunt them from sea to, or from shore to the water. And it's too rough for our boats, so we don't go out in boats. And the hunters, we would go out there at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, get out there by 6 o'clock before daybreak, and then wait for a sea lion to come by. Sometimes we'd wait for hours and hours and hours for one sea lion to come by. And they never got sleepy. They never got daydreamy. I got sleepy and daydreaming, 6 years old. By noon, I was like, oh. But the hunters, they never did. And I wondered how they do that. That's magical. And then someone all of a sudden would say, kawa-kako, sea lion coming. And instantly, these 5 or 6 men that are gathered out, they would look at the same spot in the ocean.
Wow.
It'd be like 180 degrees of water. And the sea lion could be anywhere, but they look at one spot without the man who first said it pointing or looking at. He just says, kawa-kako, and they all instantly look at the same spot. And, I would look at it and wait for the sea lion, and he doesn't show up. I don't see the sea lion.
Yeah.
It might be 10 minutes, but I knew that it must be there because they're acting like it's there. And 10 minutes later, sure enough, that sea lion shows up at exactly where they're looking.
Wow.
And, I thought that was magical too. But I learned from the seabird that the hunters were using what the seabirds were teaching. Now, my people never talked, the hunters, the men in my life never talked about this. But I made the connection.
Yeah.
And so when I started using my this thing of being out of the mind in everyday things that we do as Unangan people, like fishing, for example, we fish for halibut, hook, line, and sinker, and we are from small boats, and then I could feel the halibut before it hit the line. And I can tell you how it's behaving above the bait. And I can tell you whether or not it's hooked by the lip or the jaw or the side of the body. This is before I even see the animal.
Yeah.
And then I can tell you what size it is. I can tell you whether or not it's male or female. I can tell you how it's going to fight on the way up. And these are magical things that comes from being like the birds, which is something that I knew was something we all used to have around the world. And it's not because I'm different. It's the way I was raised was different, but everybody can achieve this kind of state.
Mm.
As long as we work at, or we get out of our mind, don't work at getting out of our mind. Well, anyway, so at age 16, I was lamenting, this is now gets the womb at the center of the universe. I was lamenting the fact that we couldn't make these incredible Unangan masks anymore, ceremonial masks. And no one did them. And I felt sad about that because I couldn't do it. I'm not an artist. I draw stick people. And so
Me too.
I decided I'm going to ask the oldest man in the village. He was 88 years old at the time. His name was Aggie because his grandfather was the last shaman that was in the village. And so I tell him my lament, and he says, no, you know, it's never been lost. He's talking in Unangan Tuna, we call it, the Aleut language. He says, it's never been lost. You want to get it back? You go out to the ocean, the edge of the ocean, take a stick and a rock, and you start listening to the rhythm of the waves and the rhythm of the wind, the rhythm of the plant, or the plants that are around, the rhythm of the seal, the rhythm of the birds. Listen to all of it. Just take it in and make a beat to them. And so, and then you get out of your mind, you set your intention, you wait for the answer to come. So I say, okay, I'm going to follow what he says. So I go out there, and when he says get out of the mind, he literally means get out of the mind where you have no words in yourself. And I knew how to do that at age 16 because I learned it at 6 years old.
Yeah.
And then he says, go to your center, which is your proverbial heart center, and then set your intention. How do you set intention without words? And this is again something that people have forgotten, that we set the intention at the cellular level of our body. That we want this so much that it's emblazoned in the cells of our body, not our minds. And so I set my intention. Wait seems simple on the surface, but what he meant was you must have trust that the answer will come. That you don't think of anything else, you just trust. And so I did that. And I waited for a couple hours, then pretty soon a small black dot shows up in my mind's eye, and out of it pours, like it got bigger and bigger, and out of it poured like 100 masks, all completely different. And like I said, I'm not an artist, but you know, there they were. So I thought, well, I must be imagining this, so I'm going to tell the elder. He says, "Echam nakoch lakaya." Good boy, you touched the center, the womb at the center of the universe. This is where we get all of our instructions. This is the original instructions for our people on how to live on Mother Earth. We get all of our instructions from there. It's not like something that we figured out over thousands of years. It's something that was just simply given to us by the womb at the center of the universe. And I learned that the womb at the center of the universe is a place of creation and creativity. And that the identical womb is in every woman. That field of energy, of identical field of magical energy is inside each woman. And that if women get together in sisterhood and they heal themselves from the traumas of generations. Now women, you would think it would take like a lifetime to heal your trauma. But no, when women get together in sisterhood with the intention of healing, they can heal the traumas instantly.
Mm.
And that once that's done, then in sisterhood, create a ceremony with the intention of projecting this field of energy, this identical field of energy on the outside.
Mm.
It's invisible, but it's there. And it creates a container for something new to be birthed.
Mm.
Now, until that happens, nothing new is going to be birthed on Mother Earth.
Mm.
And there's a lot of other things that I could talk about, but I'll stop there and I'll let you ask any questions that you might have.
Mm. Yeah, so I'm just going to repeat the steps, back to you in a sense, and see what other detail you can maybe illuminate to
Okay.
them. The first step is getting silent, and that internally in our minds. So that might be listening to the environment. So letting the rhythm of life be what is present in our sensory awareness. So we then find just that place of silence. And we set that intention or the longing, which is a cellular embodiment. So, and for what I interpret is that it's a feeling, that longing is a feeling that you fill your body with. It's not like a sentence, of words.
Right. You're exactly right.
And that you open your heart place, that center inside of you as well. Or put that longing kind of coming from that center into your body, and tapping into that silence, and for women also putting our attention onto that creative energy that we can access through the womb, and allowing it then to see what manifests, trusting that our longing will manifest.
That's very good. You only forgot one point, and that is that you first must heal the traumas of generations, this transgenerational trauma. Yeah. And so that's probably a good thing to mention, that this transgenerational trauma is from the violation that women have received, and from your great, however more back, grandmother that you had all the way down to your mother. Mm. That each generation passes along this trauma through their bodies when they're wild, and so it's passed along until you were a fetus, and your mother passed along these traumas to you. Then you're born a woman, and you face a world that doesn't respect and honor the feminine. Right. And you get traumas from that. Many of it is from childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. And then you have the collective consciousness of women, that women all over the world for thousands of years have suffered at the hands of this masculine imbalance. So what is this masculine imbalance? Well, it's actually when we began time. It was we human beings that created time, through guilt, shame, remorse, anger, rage, jealousy, the past living with us today, or projection, a fear, which is projection into the future of something that hasn't happened yet. Yeah. Every place except the proverbial now. And that's, in the proverbial now, there is no time. There is no time. For those of you, you've experienced this before, it's like the universe giving us hints about things that are happening. They open up a window and we see it, and then it closes again. Mm-hmm. That it's just a reminder that that's who we are. And so that's when we left the present moment. And so this imbalance is when we left our hearts. And that when we leave our hearts, it's like leaving ourselves. And when we leave ourselves or separate from ourselves, it's easy to separate from the other.
Mm.
And the other could be another human being, another animal, all these kinds of things. And it's the reason for wars, for example. It's the reason that people don't care about other people or other things or other animals or life. It's the reasons for all of these things that we know are wrong or not the correct way to go.
Yeah.
And so we, when we first did that, then this pendulum between masculine imbalance and feminine imbalance started up.
Mm.
And it goes back and forth. And the last imbalance swing was the masculine imbalance some 4,000 to 6,000 years ago that is still with us today.
Yeah.
And so women have a lot to realize, to remember, and to remember how women can heal. This is one of the things that's taught during the rites of passage of women in indigenous cultures. Mm. And then how to take this energy and put it on the outside. Now, until that happens, nothing new is going to be birthed. Not the state-of-the-art technologies, the state-of-the-art thinking. They're all old stuff in new form. That's all they are. And so you talk about things like hybrid fuels, for example. Mm-hmm. Great deal, right? We're going to cure the ozone layer and do all these things that cut down on global climate crisis. And so as soon as the U.S. declared they were going to hybrid fuels, the world's farmers, many of the world's farmers, decide they're going to switch their crops from food crops to fuel crops, and to make money that way. And so that's when we increased the price of food worldwide and increased starvation worldwide. That's just one example of this thinking with this is something that's state of the art, but it's really the old in new form.
Yeah.
And everything else that is created today, I know, is stuck in this way, because until human beings remember the role of women. And this is why women were considered sacred all over the world at one point in time.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So everyone who's watching, all women, just want you to let that sink in, that sacredness that you embody on an inherent energetic and then emanating into the physical form. So just letting that sacredness that we all have a lineage going back to and an embodiment of, and we have a lot to clear, but that original intention that created us is there right now in our own sacredness.
Yep, and I would say if any of this resonates with you, I'm just a reminder of what you already know. So, and for men, it's equally important for the men. The men's job is to protect the sacred space of women so they can do their work. And in today's terms, that could mean, for example, I'm a man talking about women's stuff. My women elders tell me it's going to be necessary in the beginning for men to do this because everybody's focused on the masculine imbalance, and they think it's normal and it's abnormal. But if you come out as a man talking about these things, then it'll open up the doors for women to get in to do their work. That's just one example.
Yeah. And it's the reverse. You're validating us versus you're basically fixing the part of the trauma of the imbalance, righting it. So,
exactly.
yeah. Wow. Uh, I feel open and complete in the moment somehow.
That's good. Yeah, I think that when women do that and they remember their sisters and come together in sisterhood, and today in today's world it's very difficult because women struggle with the masculine imbalance inside themselves too.
Yeah.
And so it's competition, it's one-upmanship, it's criticism, it's all this kind of opposite of what a real human being is.
Mm.
And that if we, so they say that the first thing we have to do is to heal. And for the men, you know, we take 40, sometimes a lifetime, years to heal one thing, but women can do this instantly. And if they can get together in sisterhood and with open hearts
Mm.
and with unconditional love for each other, they can do this. And this is what the world is called to do now, because we're the elders I work with through the wisdom weavers of the world. They say that we must change our consciousness now.
Mm.
We do not have the luxury of time anymore. And it's going to be this generation that's going to decide whether or not human beings are going to live.
Mm.
And, you know, Mother Earth, she'll continue to live. She's lived for billions of years. She's going to live for billions more. It's only a question about whether or not we human beings are going to live. And Mother Earth is crying for her Earth children. And what, in our interpretation, the indigenous view of the pandemic, for example, that everybody is going through, is a gift from Mother Earth. And we call it a gift because we see what it's giving, or that it shows for Mother Earth. During the pandemic, streets were cleared. When it first started out, streets were cleared all over the world. So animals started to show up in these places. Wow. I mean, they'd never shown up in these places ever since men were, or people were around, but now they showed up. And then you could see the Himalayas from India, 30 miles away. And so that's wow, that they cleared the air in that short a time. And then the ozone layer over the north healed completely. That's just Mother Earth showing how quickly she can heal if we just give the space to do that. And then the need to slow down, speeding up everything. Computers, even the way we talk is being faster and faster. The younger generations talk faster, and they say, we elders, we talk slower. You know, but in Alaska, we have over 200 villages, and all the villages have what is called earth-based pace. They talk slower, they act slower, they move slower, they have meetings slower. It takes time.
Yeah.
Because we understand that we must slow down to Mother Earth's pace in order to communicate and be in harmony with her. Until we do that, it's not going to happen. So we're asking what? To show the world that the whole world's got to slow down, but it's struggling to try to get back to the abnormalized normal that we live in now. Speed and being fast and being in quiet. Silence is so important. To be able to listen to Mother Earth, we have to stop this talk that's going in our heads, and we talk between each other. We have to just be there, to listen like my grandfather taught me.
I love that phrase, earth-based pace.
I do too.
Mhm. Just soaking in the silence with you.
I know, I can feel it.
Mm. Awesome.
Okay, well, we could go on talking for hours, but you know,
Yes.
I think probably this is enough for people to try to digest.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah, but if you want to do this again, you know, just let me know and I'll be glad to do it.
Thank you so much, Ilarion. Thanks for, your silence and what you bring in um, that beauty of creating in this way that we need to all get back to creating too, and that earth-based pace and that unconditional love that I know that you are also bringing and why you can be the kuyaks, so thank you so much for that.
Now, I'm just a messenger. That's what kuyak means. So, you know, I'm no different. There's nobody any more or any less than anybody else. We're all the same. And you are my other self.
I am your other self. It's so cool that you're in another body.
That's right. That's so true. I pass people on the streets and I say a silent prayer to them and say, thank you for being human, for having the courage to be here.
I know, right?
My other self.
Man, my other self, I can't believe you showed up here to be with me again this time. This is amazing.
Exactly.
Well, thank you to all of our other selves who are listening. You're all part of our one self in these beautiful embodied different skin tones and variety and diversity. And yeah, we're loving you all from the center of the universe out to this crazy thing we're living in.
Yeah, that's good.
So thank you. Thank you, Ilarion.
Thank you.